Put on the website in the consultation form, but we started recording training sessions, Zoom sessions, and consultations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So resource guarding?
Since she was a puppy.
Okay.
We've worked on it. I honestly we've been working on something with her forever. But we worked on it, worked with a trainer on it, essentially got to a place in the house where it's like I manage it, I keep socks up, I keep things like that.
Mm-hmm.
When she gets a bully stick or anything like that, she goes to her bed.
Okay.
She gets it on her bed.
Okay.
And I can do things where like, okay, give it to mommy now, you know, or like things like that, where before it wasn't like that. It was
Sure.
like the actual, but I am not gonna touch her. Like that her using her teeth as an option, I don't think was never off the table for her.
Right.
And I think that it's carried over now, and I've been bit, and it's like, I don't know if that, like the desensitization of like the touch not liking it comes from resource guarding. I don't know what is what now, and it's all.
She doesn't know what to call, what's going on.
I don't know, I feel like a mess.
So, what, just petting her is what triggers?
Yeah, like being bit, or
Yeah,
like
like you
guarding.
said, like you don't, like you said, you're talking about touching her.
Yeah, like that will get her to bite me too. But the resource guarding essentially is like if she finds a toy that seems high value for that day,
Mm-hmm.
right? She likes to keep it by her.
Mm-hmm.
We've gotten to a place where I can be like, okay, give me your cone, give me your ball, give me whatever it is. But essentially, she likes to keep it by her,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's where we've gotten with the resource guarding, but she's also, something with the touch is off and she is biting me.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's because it's happened when she is on the couch, or if it's like resource guarding of the space, or just also anti-touch, like it's happened when I hand feed her sometimes because like, that's what a trainer had me do, like, okay, to build her capacity for touch, and then food. So like I'm still doing this essentially with different things, with her nails, so that she can go to a groomer, then she won't freak out about her nails and that.
What, I have to say, just to listen
Yes.
to, what were you doing when she bit you?
There's been a couple different times, and one time I was hand feeding her. I was like sitting on the ground, hand feeding her. She was like 6, so it was chicken and rice. And I was just petting her on this side, and that was this one. And she just on that. And when she does it, it's like, argh! But like,
Not like an actual bite, like it's a.
no, but it's like a puncture wound because it's still, and it bruises and it swells. I have a video from the last time.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, she could do more damage if she wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I was doing when that one happened. The other one, she had a blister on her paw, and I had been managing it really well with like, okay, let me clean it. Okay, here's some food. That's how I was hand feeding her food. So after, like, she essentially got breakfast by letting me clean her blister on her paw. Well, we woke up, and I had put a sock over it at night so she wouldn't.
Get it or something.
Yes, and she was just, we were on the couch for this one, but I was like playing with the sticky part of it, and that's when she had this one. She bit Michael in the past. Granted, he was drunk, but he went up to her, you know, like, hey, Koba, blah, blah, blah. And then so it's a real mess. I really don't know.
How old?
4.5.
4.5. When did this all start?
I would say we realized the resource guarding really early.
Sure.
We've always been scared of her. We've basically been managing her. We just never trusted her. We never trusted her after the resource guarding.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say, oh my God, I don't even know when the bites started, like young.
Like the bite, like for the touch stuff.
Like the recent ones were in the last 6 months.
Like all the ones you just talked about right now.
Those 2 were in the last 6 months.
Okay.
The one that Michael was bit was within the last year.
Okay. And then prior to that, it was mainly.
Prior to that, we were at a park once, and a guy, and had a ball, an older man came, she like went and laid down with the ball that she found, and he came over and she nipped him, because he went to go touch her. Yeah, and luckily he had a dog at Resource Garden, so he was like, yeah, he's like, just work on that stuff. So that was that guy. She bit my nephew once, like Kobe Braxton. This is my bad. I feel real bad about this one. I'm ashamed. Okay. So she gets a beefier in the morning to chew on, but she has to be in her spot, right? And she always goes to her spot and eats it, and usually eats all of it. She didn't that day for some reason, and like found it later when him and I were building a tent in the living room, and she had just found it and settled with us, and then I like went to go get water for us in the kitchen, and he touched her, and she nipped him. But luckily it was like barely, but still, you know, I mean,
Yeah, especially when it's a little kid.
oh my god, I felt so bad. But like, I wish you almost would have saw the anxiety that I had, like, even with Mare and Enrique, like, it's, I don't know what is mine to work on of like trusting this dog and what is Koba's to work on, and what, I don't know what to do. She's a sweet dog. She's generally happy, but I keep her pretty secluded because I am terrified that she will, I mean, I manage it by taking her on like 2 40-minute walks a day. We go to, you know, Roosevelt High School right by me has so I'll throw her a ball for a few times a day. But I think that she likes dogs. Like, she would like to, I think she likes dogs. I know.
Why things like?
Because I think she does, but I get like, she's been bit twice. I don't know. I think there's a lot of like, yeah.
At the dog park and stuff, or?
Yes, at the dog.
Were they, was it when she was a puppy, was it when she was an older dog?
I want to say like 1 or 2.
Okay, so she was an adult already. And then, so she got bit twice by a dog at the dog park. And then from there, did you just stop taking her because you were just like other dogs and jerks?
Other dogs, other people. It was bad in my marriage, so it was like avoidance, right? Like we just couldn't handle Koba's issues and our issues at the same time, and so we just kind of tried to manage whatever we could. And now I just feel like I know I'm not doing a great job at explaining.
No, I'm getting it. I'm able to piece it together.
So now but she also like, she's recently divorced, so it's just her now. You know what I mean? So she needs to like.
So like I want to, one, I know that like structure and obedience will help, but that's not the only thing with Koba. There's something else, like with the touch.
Yeah, okay, and that we call touch sensitivity.
Yeah.
It's just like the dog, for whatever reason, does it like the touch. That's why I was asking, like, well, what
So
are you doing?
here's what I mean. I'll be touching her, and she'll be so happy. Like she was asking for pets right there for Mare, right? But then she'll show what seem like when trainers have told me like signs of stress, like she'll start licking, and it's just like when I get bit, I also almost pass out. Like I get super white. I start sweating. I have to go in the tub. So I'm not like training her in that moment either. So it's just kind of, all feels like a lot. Like I'm always worried that like when that licking starts happening, I'm like, okay, stop petting her, please.
Yeah, anxiety.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
And it's like, I don't even know if that's unfounded.
For you?
Like.
Or for her?
Both.
Both. Okay. So the time that she's bit you over touch, it was you were checking her paw for a blister, with the sock and all that stuff, or what have you?
Yeah, it was like taking the tape off the sock, essentially, because I taped it to her.
Correct. Then there was, you were feeding her chicken and rice from your hand and you were pinning her side.
Yes.
And at that moment, she bit you.
Yes, and I can't recall the other time she bit Michael, and I didn't want to ask him, honestly.
The time that he was drunk?
There was that, but I think there were probably one or two other times.
Okay.
But I don't have the details. I don't have the details off the top of my head.
Okay. When you came to pet her, was it like late at night? Like, 1 o'clock in the morning, or was it like during the day?
No, we were like watching football on TV.
Okay, and so she was like awake and like alert.
She was like laying on the couch, and maybe had been like snoozing, but like aware that like something good happened because dad just cheered, or like.
Yeah.
How is she when people come over?
I honestly, people have barely come over because pandemic,
Right.
divorce, and I manage it. She's very excited when the few people I've had come over, she's super excited, like almost rude, where like wants to, like jumps, like to be pet, and like she's so excited, so happy, blah, 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 but I'm like, no. And then if they sit on the couch, I'm like, even more like, no. Or the bed, if she just jumps on the bed to get their waggles or get their pets. And then eventually she settles. And she just settles on the floor. And she's fine. But I get very nervous about my friends who my friends who are like cool dogs at their own thing, who aren't gonna go up to her, I'm great with, because they know don't fuck with her.
Rules, yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Okay. But like my friends that are like, oh, Koba, like let me say hi, let me who like dogs, who I would be, I can't. I'm just too scared.
Okay.
Like I'm willing to put a suit on and like practice petting her.
Okay.
You think I'm kidding, but I'm not.
No, that's fine. Okay, so then we have that. So the only time you really had her have an issue with a stranger, so to speak, was like when she was laying down at the park with the ball near her.
Yeah.
Okay.
And your nephew.
But that she had the object though.
Yeah.
And it was in your home.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
A lot of this has happened in the home.
Okay.
Honestly.
Any leash reactivity?
No.
No?
And that's what I mean about like my anxiety getting in the way. I think she would like going up to other dogs saying like hi, like she'll do that. And then her little nub will wag and whatever. But then I get like too worried, or like she'll go up to the owner and like put her head and like they're like, oh, this dog's so sweet. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna keep going now. Because I'm just like, she is in that moment. But like my own anxiety takes over what I'm willing to wait and see.
If something's gonna happen or whatever.
But that means all the good outcomes too, right?
Right. It's alright. All this stuff is normal. I mean, when you've been bitten, it creates distress.
Yeah, it's like a trauma.
Yeah, so like this is a dog bite.
I saw it on your Instagram.
Yeah.
I've been stuck.
And it's impacted me. Like it made me very edgy after it happened, absolutely. And I can still feel it to this day. But I just learned to move past it because I understand it's all psychological. But it's difficult, right? Especially when I work with big dogs like this. So I've actually been bit by a Rottweiler before. I got a 4-inch scar right here from a Rottweiler bite. So, and that caused me some
I would
psychological
say that
stuff.
would mess you up.
So I got a dog bite here, I got a dog bite here, I got 2 here, and I got another one somewhere else, I don't remember. But the 2 major ones were the rot, which was the 4-inch scar here, and then this one, which was 10 stitches. So like when I work with my Conda Corsos, my Rotties, my Great Danes, any large power breed, I always have a bit of apprehension. That is always like a little bit of a challenge. But I've learned to move past it, but it technically is still there. But the beginning, I remember after this had just happened, I had a house sat this was before I had my facility, it was like when we were like transitioning and stuff, and I took care of a dog in my home, and he was the goofiest, dopiest dog. Okay, friendliest guy. I hadn't known him since he was a puppy. No.
Oh.
But this was after the bite.
Okay.
And then one day I was in the yard taking out the potty, and he just like did this to play, and I was like, oh fuck. Like literally, and I was like, dumbass, like this, because I'm like, I know the dog, but I was so on high alert because of this had just happened.
Yeah.
That psychologically, I still had that moment.
I experience that every time I pet Koba. Even if she's happy, I am still on high alert because, like, I feel guilty sometimes. Like, she'll be like, "Meh." Like she'll go to yawn, but like the sound at first when she makes a sound, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah. And I know that affects this too. And I want to get past that, Jesse.
Well, it's hard, I'll tell you that right now. It doesn't really go anywhere. You just learn how to deal with it, you know?
I feel like I feel like I'm in therapy right now.
Also with highway, remember I took, like, he went after highway twice, and like sometimes he'll just look a certain way, and
It's just your anxiety goes up,
it just
yeah.
goes up, yeah.
You know? So it's normal. It's just learning to not feed into it, and then learning to not have that impulsive reaction. You know, so like I had a client, she had hit her head or something, and it caused all these psychological issues. Like she was very much like anxiety ridden. She had to take medication for it. Like any little sudden thing would spook her, you know? And then I remember when we were training her dog, and I was training her dog to be her service dog. And when she was going to give the dog a treat to lure the dog to do something, and the dog was non-aggressive, when the dog would do this to get the treat, she kept going like this with her hand. Like this, as if she was scared. And I figured it was probably because of the psychological trauma and all that stuff. But I didn't want to like say like,
Right.
I think that hit on your head, like how's this? So I was like, have you noticed, you know, and I just asked her, like, you know, every time your dog goes to a treat, you like overreact. And she's like, oh yeah, it's because of, you know, me hitting my head. It's caused some neurological stuff. And it was interesting because I told her, I think this will actually help you, because you know your dog's not trying to bite you. But if you keep letting this happen, your brain is practicing that behavior and it becomes more of a habit. So I was like, you have to counter it and then keep your hand still, because it's affecting your dog training. Like you're not going to be able to lure your dog into behavior if you can't focus your hand.
Right.
And it was interesting because you would see her just like really focused, you know. And it was interesting because when I brought that up to her, she's like, you know, she's like, my neurologist actually has told me to try to find an exercise where I could focus on something that would actually do exactly that.
Oh, see?
Because
Yeah.
it's like the neurons that like something together, fuse together. There's like some kind of saying they have. So every time she was doing this, it's becoming more and more
Muscle
stronger.
memory, essentially.
Yeah, built into the brain.
Yes.
So then when I brought that up, she's like, this is crazy, because all these things were just connecting, you know, and I mean, I don't know anything about that stuff, but dogs are the same way. They're action reaction. And the more they practice the reaction and reactivity, the more of a habit it becomes. So then we have action reaction consequence, which is the e-collar, to break that sequence.
Yes.
The dog no longer has reaction.
And that's what, like, when this happens, I think I wish I had, like, I almost want to recreate that situation with you and the e-collar so that there is a consequence. So that it's like not an option. I mean, I don't know if that's how dog training works, but like, so that there's not that's like, there is a consequence of
Yes, so negative or whatever it is.
yes.
The problem, however, is when it's internal, meaning when the dog will even bite the owners. That's like one of the hardest.
Great.
All right, I'll just be honest with you.
No, you have to be, yeah.
So I'm gonna explain everything, how it works and all that stuff, and then what can be done. So the first thing is, if you're gonna do any kind of touch sensitivity exercises with your dog, muzzle train first.
Okay.
It's always the first thing, because when you're pushing things like that, it puts you at risk. If you don't have a big 60-pound suit to protect you, you know, you're gonna get bit. So that's why the first thing I always do, like right now I have like a handful of cases of dogs that bite humans. And during the consult, the first thing I tell them is start muzzle condition your dog now. So by the time we need it in training, your dog should ideally already be conditioned and we can jump right into it. Most people don't do that. Most people wait like the week before, like, oh yeah, I haven't bought the muzzle yet. I'm like, really? Because I told you about 2 months ago. Start the process.
And wouldn't that mean, what does that mean? Like, that she'll let you put it on?
Correct.
I have the Baskerville,
Mm-hmm.
and she'll let me put it on, like, we're
Will
good.
she wear it?
Yeah,
Were you using this during your exercises?
no.
Yeah, anytime you're gonna check her and stuff, muzzle. Because that just keeps you safe. Okay?
I guess I've never, I've just never done it, so I'm scared. Like, I don't wanna do it wrong.
How?
I don't know.
But she'll wear it though.
Yeah, just put it on, go do some exercise with her.
So you're foreseeing a potential problem there, which makes sense. But think about it this way. It's either you put the muzzle on, and then you check her feet for blisters and don't worry about getting bit, or you avoid the muzzle, check her feet for blisters, which actually is the trigger, and you get bit.
Yeah.
You know? So it's best to always prepare for the worst, okay? And even going forward, like let's say if you train with me and all that stuff, I would tell you anytime you have to get in her space, muzzle your dog, okay? Because ego tells us, well, I don't want to have to muzzle my dog. But she is a big dog, right? And then one solid bite from a dog like that could fuck you up pretty bad.
Right.
You know, like I'm lucky, I had no nerve damage here. I'm good. I know another trainer who got bit almost similarly, and the way his like left arm works is not the same. You can tell.
Well, that's what I was nervous after this bite, because it was like right here, and it was like, this is tender shit. Like, that's
It's mainly the nerves. So like when I got bit here, because all this was split open, there was like it looked like a vein, and they told me it was my nerve. And the nerves are what like your mobility and your sensitivity stuff. So if you got a clear bite right here, that's
So what do I do, like,
muscle tissue.
so like in the morning when I'm feeding her, doing this nail stuff to make her like get better about getting her nails trimmed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's put the scissors up to the nail and then give her treat. She doesn't put that muzzle on the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing is you counter conditioning her, which is what that's called.
It's like bargaining, I feel, no?
Oh, well, yes and no. So let's say you're doing purely positive, no consequence. Yes, it can feel like bargaining, right? Because it's like, please don't bite me. If you don't bite me, I'll give you something, right? But the whole theory is, if she doesn't like having her toes touched or her nails trimmed or what have you, you're trying to make her feel good about it. So it's kind of like, you know, if you don't like being pinched, right? But then I give you $10 every time I pinch you. You're like, well, it sucks, but I'll take the $10, right? But you don't ever fully like.
Right.
Yeah, it never feels good.
Exactly, you know, but that's the same thing about dogs. So when we're dealing with stuff like grooming, nail trimming, things like that, bathing, that's all unnatural to a dog. Is that in my book, the only person or being that can change their mind and how they feel about something
Is the dog.
is the dog. And you can do everything in the world to make her like it, but you can't make her like it. She has to decide to like it, okay? So like sushi, 14 years ago, that's a long time. 14 years ago, I didn't like sushi. Raw fish, ew, gross, no way, right?
My whole life.
My friend tried cooked sushi, Godzilla roll, cream cheese, and all cream cheese, avocado, ooh, sign me up, right? Try it out, that's great stuff. So I started with cooked sushi, and I'm like, try some of that raw sushi, and I love sushi now. But I decided that.
Right.
I had the experience, I liked it, and I changed my mind going forward. Same thing for your dog. So, like let's say swimming. A lot of dogs have apprehension about jumping into a pool. And we can counter that with the e-collar. And once the dog gets over the mental hump of jumping into the pool, a lot of dogs love swimming. It's just they didn't have it in them to go into it in the first place. But once they experience it, they just go, oh shit, this is
Right.
pretty fun, I'm missing out. And they start swimming, no problem. But with other things like nail trimming, grooming, blow drying, all that is unnatural. That does not happen in nature to dogs. So when they don't like it, there has to be a balance of positive to help them kind of get through it and like kind of like it, but then negative if they should act out.
Right.
So I have a client, I actually just saw her earlier today, the dog's name is Yogi. And same thing, if she tried to grab his leg or his paw, right?
Yes.
So muzzle condition, and we had the session right here, and I was grabbing his legs and pulling and stretching, and he blew up, and I corrected him. We did it again, he didn't blow up, he got a treat. Okay, so now he's thinking,
Yes, this is what I'm talking about.
I blow up, I get
Yes.
this, if I don't blow up, I get this, right? But I told her, in my book, even though yes, we're doing all this stuff so your dog isn't a problem, you would still muzzle. Okay, we're doing it just in case one day she has to check something and there is no muzzle, right? But the muzzle is always present when she can, because that's just safety, okay? Because they're an animal, right? She could be fine, and then not fine.
Right.
And that's where things are dicey, and that's what keeps you on edge. Because you're like, well, that yawn, right? That sound, right? It's just all part of the process. So the muzzle just takes off one thing off your plate of like, okay, if something happens, you might
There's a
get
line of
spooked.
protection.
Yeah, you're not gonna get hurt, okay? So anything that you have to do where it's in her business and stuff like that, and just because you counter condition a dog does not mean it'll transfer to the groomer. Because it's two separate contexts,
Yeah.
okay? So like, you could actually take her with none of this counter conditioning stuff to a very experienced groomer with large dogs and dogs that are defensive, and they go, yeah, dog had no problem. And you're like, what? but she always gives me a problem.
Right.
But that person is so experienced
Right.
and knows how to handle dogs and all that stuff and move past it safely. The dog goes, all right, well, I can't bully you.
Right.
So fine therapist with you.
Right.
Context-based.
Yeah.
Or you do all this training, counter conditioning, you take her to an experienced groomer. Oh my God, your dog tried to attack me. Right? Because they're inexperienced, they don't know how to handle a dog like this. So there's so many kind of variables that fall into play. So counter conditioning is good because, you know, obviously if something happens to her, you're gonna have to check her and be in her business. But regardless, must always be a factor in that, okay? When it comes to touching her for like petting reasons or what have you, this is where things get a little tricky. Dogs don't need to be pet. It's nothing that they need to survive. In my book, humans don't need to pet the dog, but some humans feel like they need to. From what I'm picking up from you is it really doesn't seem like it's fun for you to pet her to a degree.
Like it is for like a few seconds.
But is it worth the anxiety of worrying she's gonna bite you?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
But
I
that's
guess
the tricky part.
because I keep doing it, so.
That's the tricky part, you see what I'm saying? Is because if you have a dog that, let's say, doesn't want to be touched, because it happens, there's dogs that just don't touch me. And I go, I can't make the dog like even the owner petting the dog. And I'll have to have a conversation with the owner, like, look, we've done all the exercises, your dog just doesn't want to be touched. Which isn't a bad thing, because if you don't touch the dog's gonna be fine,
Yeah.
right? But the owner's like, yeah, but it's my dog, I want people to touch my dog. I'm like, but that's a human ego.
Yeah.
I'm doing your animal.
Yeah. And that exists in me,
Yes.
you know?
The problem is, you have a very large dog.
I know.
Right? And then you've already had experiences. So now you're coming into the situation with prior experiences, you get nervous if there's a sudden yawn or a sudden lip lick, and then you're overridden with an anxiety, right? And that can then cause a feedback loop,
Yes.
okay? And that's where things again get tricky. Because no matter how much we work with her, one day she just decides like I don't want to be touched anymore, despite the fact of doing 6 months of work, she's still gonna try to bite you. Okay, because it's organic. What's the hardest thing to create is always organic settings. Okay, so like,
Right.
if I have dogs that fight within the home, trying to set it up. It's a setup, you can see it. You come in with one dog, the other person comes in with another dog, you're walking past each other, you lay them right next to each other. It's all controlled, it's not realistic.
Right.
So then I'll tell the owners that you have to have the collar on, that the dogs be organic, coexisting, but then you have to wait for that moment where it's gonna happen and catch it while it happens organically, right? Your problem is it's because it's tied with you,
Right.
and then it just puts you at risk. You see what I'm saying?
So what do I do?
So I'll give you your options,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna give you realistic, like, best case scenario and then worst case scenario, and then you just kind of pick and choose what you wanna do,
Okay.
okay? The resource guarding is actually the easiest thing.
Shut up.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I guess I'll just shut up now.
No, no, no.
I had a conversation though, so.
Okay.
Resource guarding is the easiest because it's context-based. We know if there's a ball, a water bottle, a sock, anything that she would possess, we know there's gonna be resource guarding, or I assume there's gonna be resource guarding. People tend to gamble. Is the dog gonna guard this? Is the dog gonna guard this? Because they didn't guard that the other day, right? And then they get bit. So I always assume when there's an option for the dog, there's gonna be resource guarding.
Okay.
With e-collar, we don't need to piss off the dog.
Oh,
Because
okay.
people usually think you're gonna make the dog angry,
Right.
and then we're gonna crack them.
Right.
We don't do that.
Okay.
We teach the dog how to relinquish an object using pressure. Okay, so like with reactivity, if there's reactivity, e-collar will go off, reactivity stops, e-collar turns off, right? So you could be literally 20 feet away from your dog while she has a problem, and you tell her to drop, and with the e-collar, you would make her relinquish it and walk away from it.
Right.
And then you would come in and then you could take the object and walk away. But she spit it out and goes, okay, I no longer want this, I'm gonna leave it alone, and leaves.
Yeah.
Okay, so we teach the dog how to release. So when you give the cue of drop her out, whatever it is,
Yeah.
she spits it out and leaves.
Trade
So
job.
if she surrenders it, there's nothing to guard. But if it's in her vicinity or in her space, she's gonna guard it, right? So like the guy with the park with the ball thing, which was funny because you're like, he had a dog in his spirit that had resource guarding. I'm like, if that would, in my book, if I knew that, I wouldn't have even got near her.
Right.
You know, I would have just assumed.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's my rule. That's all my employees here. When you see a dog with a toy or a bone or whatever, always assume they're gonna be a resource guarder. Because people tend to assume it's gonna be fine, they can take anything, and then they get bit, okay?
Okay, so resource guarding, e-collar, or,
It's super easy,
okay,
okay? And I had recently a golden retriever named Bo, who had already bitten the owner several times by the age of 6 to 7 months, like hardcore resource guarder. And now they haven't had issues with them in like months. Because we taught them how to relinquish things, we put them under a lot of pressure, and they didn't have to piss them off once.
yeah,
Okay, so what happens is, if I know this dog is a resource guarder, and I come into her personal space, and she triggers, and then I try the e-collar, I'm already creating conflict, more likely that the dog's gonna come for me, because there's already tension,
yeah,
right? But if I stay outside of that threshold, and I put her under pressure, there's no conflict, because we're not even in the situation. So dogs are on or off. She's guarding, or she's not guarding. That's it. There's no in between. So if something gets close enough, guard. When it leaves, not guarding.
right,
That's dog,
Yes.
right? So you just do all this stuff when she's not guarding. So eventually, if you have a really solid drop out, and then one day she picks up a sock she's not supposed to have, and you say, ouch, she just spits it out and walks away.
right,
But the one thing with resource guarding or the drop it stuff is it takes a lot of time and repetition to get it to be reliable even without the e-collar. Because that's the goal for that kind of command,
right,
okay? When it comes to like the touching stuff, okay? Muzzle conditioning, if she's not muzzle conditioned, she'll wear it and tolerate it and like not try to fight it, that's fine. Having her wear it to just, so it's not tied to, we're gonna do your feet exercises today, because she's gonna learn that.
she's so smart, that's the other thing, she's so freaking smart.
So then what we would do is sometimes when you walk her, pop a muzzle on her. Sometimes when she's hanging around the house, pop the muzzle on her. So it's not always muzzle, touch.
But it always is when I do touch.
Yes, whenever you do touch, muzzle will be a part of it,
Okay.
but muzzle doesn't always mean touch.
Right.
It's gonna be a part of it.
Got it.
Okay? So this way she's like, oh, muzzle's on, what are we doing today? Going for a walk, all right. Just hanging out the house, all right, right? Just hanging out watching TV, okay.
Muzzle
Touch,
doesn't always mean
okay.
touch.
Exactly.
Okay.
But the problem is like people, like when they go to the vet, only put the muzzle to the vet, so now the dog learns, muzzle, vet.
Should I be writing this down, or are you, okay?
Oh, I'm here,
Okay, okay.
So when it comes to the touch stuff, because you need to touch her for the sake of examining her for things or cutting her nails or whatever, that's gonna take time. The exercises are easy, as you know, you've been doing them, they just take time,
Yeah,
okay? So I agree with using high value stuff like chicken and everything like that. The only thing is we would need to have a consequence, okay?
right,
So then, you could bring her here or whatever, we do the exercises, she flips out, I show you how to de-escalate her and correct her to shut that down, go back to touching again, she blows up, we correct it, shut it down, go back to touching again, she does nothing, we feed.
right,
Okay, so now she's going like, okay, like you have a bit more power now, and now you can actually give me physical consequence that I respect,
right,
right? Because like prong collar, or just telling her no, or not giving her a treat and stuff like that, are not actual consequences for a dog.
I know,
Prong is, but she's so big, chances are you're not gonna be able to correct her firm enough with the prong to deter the behavior. So that one is like mediocre, because we have the muzzle involved, but it's just difficult because of her size.
okay,
Because you can imagine, like, it's you doing this exercise at home. I show you how to do it,
right,
but if one day she like blows up and is being, like, you have to control her, you have to regain control.
right,
So then physically, you're having to maneuver and correct and all that stuff, and then once you win, continue with the
Right.
process, right? And you may feel like not continuing, but if that happens, guess what she learns?
right, that she can do this,
Exactly, that she can control the situation by blowing up because you will stop.
right,
So even though you shut her down, she still technically got what she wanted. So you have to keep pushing the exercise. And that happens, like, I always tell clients with human aggressive dogs, whatever, I'll tell them, you might have guests come over and everything's going great and your dog goes after your guest. That's why the muzzle is there. So it's very important that your guest does not leave after that experience, because then the dog will learn, even with that muzzle on, if I act out like this person will leave. So then I always tell your guest first that it may happen, because you want them to tell you yes or no then.
right,
Because if they're like, screw this, I'm done, and they leave, they've now just worked against them. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yes.
So it's easier going into it knowing like this might suck, but then they're willing to stick around So the dog thinks like, all right, like I tried it, got corrected, and you're still here.
Okay.
I didn't win, okay? When it comes to like just touching her for the sake of touching her, that is the most complicated part, okay? Because you could be completely fine with her for 6 months, and then 6 months day one, something happens, okay? So if you were to pet her, I would either put it under very controlled contacts, more so making the dog move into my space as opposed to me moving into the dog space, because that makes a big
It
difference.
does, yeah.
And then petting her, and then when petting her, always passive petting. I don't do the big type of petting. So like when you said your ex-husband, right, you come home and then like, or during the game,
Yeah.
what was like a lot of, that's probably why that happened. Because she's going, hey, yo, like that's way too much, you know, because she has boundaries.
Yeah.
And the thing is that if she
She is not a dog built. I think that she is not a cuddle dog. She is not ever, very rarely has she those pets are about it. But like every once in a while she'll put her head on my leg or her head on my, but like she's not like when people have dogs and they have pets and their dogs sleep.
Yeah.
oh sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's already, again, telling you something else about her.
Yes.
Right? So then it's, let's say if you go home and then you just like reflect. And you're just like, she doesn't cuddle, she rarely comes over for pets. She doesn't like when I give her a lot of energy. Like all these things, right? And it's like, she's just a dog who likes to be left alone. You
That's how
know?
highway is. Like,
Yeah.
You say,
Yeah,
I'll
like,
come by you when I want you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and then otherwise, so like if you see that, you're like, you know what happens if I just go by her boundaries? And then you go 3 years, no incidents. And then you're like, wow, like just knowing her boundaries is just, same thing for people, right? Like everybody has boundaries.
Yeah.
Except for humans, you could say like, yo, you're talking a little too close to me. Or like, hey, you're talking too loud, or whatever, right? She doesn't have that.
Right.
She's just thinking you're in my space, space or in my personal space, in my face, or too much energy, boom. So going back to the child, right? And you said it was barely like a scratch or something. That was all intentional.
I know.
Right? So that's actually a good thing.
Yeah, because it's like she controlled her jaws enough.
Yes. So she didn't have intent to do harm there.
Right.
She just taught that child a
Fuck
lesson.
away from me.
Exactly. Because remember, if a puppy were to come up to her, she would bite the puppy. That is their language. It just doesn't translate well to the human world.
Yes.
Okay? So when you're telling me about the kid, I was expecting something worse. When you told me that it was barely anything, I was like, good. So that's what tells me this isn't really an aggressive dog.
Right.
She's just a dog that has boundaries. Resource guarding is a thing for sure, no argument there.
Okay.
But when it comes to the touch stuff, like if she really wanted to tear up her hand, she would have torn up her
That's what
hand.
I keep thinking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's more like a warning or like a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure, and I get that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I tell you that to just kind of help you.
For my anxiety.
Mhm.
So you're saying this is not an aggressive dog, Kelly. Hear that out. Know that.
Yes.
Stop being so anxious a little bit.
This dog is not an aggressive dog. Okay, so this Great Dane 1-year-old unneutered, when I went to the house for the consultation, this was like pre-COVID or whatever, he had destroyed the house. He chewed up everything, like the couch, the springs were showing. Okay, they're like, we're moving to a new house, we don't need the dog to do this again. So I was like, Jesus, I was like, all right. Came for day 1 of his board and train, okay, 4-week board and train. He had never been in the kennel before. He was doing great with the training, no issues. Went to put him in the kennel, not going in the kennel, looked up, bit my hand, okay? So that was because he didn't want to go
He's
in the
not an
kennel.
aggressive dog.
Correct.
He used the tools he had
Right.
to do something because he didn't want to do something.
Correct. So imagine someone you just met, took you and tried to block you in a room. Are you not going to defend yourself, thinking like, what the fuck are you doing, right? That's the dog. He didn't know. And the funny thing was, I wasn't even trying to put him in the kennel. I was just trying to see if he would fit in the kennel because I had to go buy the bigger one because he was the biggest dog I had at the time. So I was just trying to see if he'd go in the kennel. I got bit for it, right? So I called the owners up, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're going to sue us, this and that." And I said, "I'm not going to sue you. This is just happens on the job." It's like, your dog is not aggressive. I was like, your dog just has never been exposed to a kennel before and went into defense mode. And then I was like, has your dog ever been in the kennel? They said, no. I said, okay, well in the meantime, while I heal up, please buy a kennel and have your dog go in the kennel. So then when he came back for his board and train, no issues, okay? We muzzle condition him just in case, but no issues.
Right.
He comes to daycare, he comes to boarding, he's a big, goofy, loaf of a great
He's
thing.
not an aggressive dog.
He's not an aggressive dog, okay? So anyone and everyone is capable of becoming aggressive.
Right.
Even golden retrievers. The dog Boy I mentioned earlier, 6 to 7 year old golden retriever. And it's funny because I have had 3 to 4 golden retrievers in the past 6 months, and they were all 6 months to 8 months that were resource guarders and had bitten the owners. But everybody sees golden retrievers as the happy-go-lucky dogs.
Honestly, that's why I'm a little lucky, because people are, in that way are scared of
Her.
already. So they're where they expect the golden retriever. They do not expect the golden retriever to do that. They expect it
We
very
see that in our neighborhood with the golden retrievers, you know, the ones that are similar walking by.
Right. All dogs and all animals, all things are capable of becoming
Yeah.
defensive.
So when I first made this consultation, I was thinking like a board and train thing. Is that what you're thinking, or what are you thinking?
It'd be me showing you. Because even if we
Well,
did
what
all
about
the
the
work,
obedience stuff?
me showing you.
Okay.
Trust me, it's easy. I've changed things a lot since I worked with your mom, right?
My godmother.
Godmother, sorry.
Yeah.
Right when I said, I was like, I think I'm getting that wrong.
You were
So-
half wrong.
Is I don't need to touch the dog anymore. I can coach the owner through everything. Okay, because when COVID happened, everybody was like, don't come to my house, don't touch my dog. So I was like, well, how do I train dogs, right? And I was like, well, I don't need to technically, because I could just take what I know and just coach the owner through it. That's the great thing about remote collar.
Okay.
It's very common sense. I can coach you through it. You get the results then, and then you just practice. Okay. So the reason why I say you is because even if we did all this stuff with her, we could groom her and do everything and all that nonsense, and she's completely fine.
Right.
And then you go home with her, and it's like, hey Jesse, my dog, she's like trying to bite me for petting her, because we did the work. So it's tied to us. Okay. So like you doing the work, I agree with.
No, I want it to be, that's totally fine. Because it also increased my capacity, and if I'm nervous, you can be like, Kelly, this is not, like, she's fine, you're
Yeah, I'll
not,
put
you
a
know.
collar on you, just.
Exactly, yes.
It's like when we came with Pilsen, he was so aggressive, like dog issues, remember all that, like with the other dogs? And just like one time with Jesse, it was like your confidence goes from here to there with
Yeah.
that collar.
Because when you have the control, because that's where it comes from.
Okay.
Confidence comes from seeing the success, having failures and recovering from them,
Right.
losing control and regaining control, because that's what makes me an effective trainer. When I come in, it's not always easy peasy. Sometimes it's really bad. When this happened, right, this dog had bitten me, and then, because the way that they talk, like with off these dogs, from like defend your dog, kick the dog, all that stuff, right? You would think like, oh, did you beat the crap out the dog? I go, no. And you go, what do you mean no? I'm like, because the dog wasn't trying to attack me, the dog was scared. So all I did was relinquish pressure to help the dog relax, I'm not a threat. And then once I have him settled, we threw him in the pen. It's completely opposite to what I usually teach, which is confrontation.
That is so, that tracks, that, because like, I think there were times, you know, at both of our ends, you know, Michael sometimes would be like, I'm gonna get like mean with her, like aggressive, like, and she never backed. Like, it wouldn't be like a back, because she was not any like, okay, orange. She was like, rawr, you know, like.
Yeah, that's not, to me, that's not like aggressive. That was like a frustration, or that's like a unsure, like what are you doing? Because as a human, your natural inclination is to shout or get angry.
Right.
And then people always wonder why their dogs get more defensive. And I go, because it's your energy.
This is Bob on Highway, because he's, you know how he is, he's just a jackass. Highway. But then he'll get mad at Highway, he yells, Highway barks more, Bob gets louder. He yells. I said,
It's a barking match, all
I
it
said, all
is.
these dogs have different personalities, you're not gonna get through to Highway like that.
Correct.
That's not how you're getting through
Because
that.
dogs don't shout at each other, they bite each other.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay, so e-collar, yes, I'm so happy about this.
Okay, now the tricky part here is, because of her size, it depends, every dog is different. So like I have another Roddy right now that I'm working with. Man, the first time I saw her, like, went after me like several times. Like I couldn't even get near the guy. Like I was just said hello from like 20 feet away. The dog was blowing up. So he's doing a lot better now. And he's at like 110 on the collar, on the high power, the one that Pilsen has. And the dog is phased, but I can tell, I'm like, man, this guy does not have that much wiggle room if things go south. So I told him, like, I think you need a second collar for that dog. We have another dog right now, his name's Doug, he's a little crazy ass pit. And one collar, like for 5 minutes, I can do 127 continuous, and you know 127 continuous, how much power that is.
I've never been that high.
But you're aware of the power.
Yeah.
Doesn't care. So we have to pop a second collar on him. Now that we pop the second collar, which means 2 go off at once.
Yeah.
Now we're getting through to him, because he's so crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
So you have 2 collars, one
One
buzzer, one remote.
so you compare 2 collars to one.
Oh, that's how Nancy did with the old one, okay.
Oh, no, that's different, because it was 1 per dog.
Yeah,
This
but
is
she
2
had, but then.
On one
they-
dog.
Right, but
Yeah.
her controller worked both, I think.
when she pressed them.
Yeah.
But they were respective.
Okay.
Whereas this is 1 button, 2 collars at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we had to do that for Doug because he was so insane that in order to override all that stuff, he needed 2 collars. And now we're finally getting through to him.
Mhm.
So I only bring that up because when I deal with these larger, more powerful breed
They have
dogs,
to do that.
you may need twice the power. Okay,
Right.
but we don't know until time.
Yep.
Okay, every dog is different. She could be super sensitive to the collar, not care, not need, 80. She could be responsive to 20 and super sensitive to it. But we don't know until we start working. So the first thing that I would do here is first class is always heel.
What was that?
Heel.
Heel, okay.
Okay, because that teaches her and you how the e-collar works, how it turns on, how it turns off. Class 2 is the second half of heel. Probably sounds familiar, right?
Mhm, I know.
The turns and all that stuff, right? The third class, everything's going well. Now we start going into like the conditioning type stuff. Having the muzzle on, the touch sensitivity, the tapping for the bad behavior, the rewarding for good behavior, right? And that exercise. And then that is, because people always ask, how do I know when I'm done? And I always just tell them, because you're the one that does all the work with her. I don't know what you're doing with her, right? So the owners have a really good sense of like, okay, now I can have my dog off leash because they know I have the recall, right? But in that conversation, everybody was like, I don't know. I was like, your dog would be perfect right now, but when I'm not around, it could be terrible, right? So you do the exercise until you're at a point where you're like, man, she's pretty solid, right? And then you don't need to do them all the time.
Right.
But like, let's say one day she gets another blister on her paw, okay? You would go into that exercise, but you put that muzzle on as precaution.
Yeah.
Put the e-collar and everything, and just look over her. But that's now a more organic type situation. So that's actually where the real training comes into play.
Okay.
So everything else we're doing is setting a foundation, and then we're just, when it comes, hopefully one day, you don't need to use the collar or anything, like it's been conditioned enough, but it's already there in case something happens, you can correct her, okay? The resource guarding, same thing. So class 3 could either be jump into resource guarding or jump into touch sensitivity, okay? The next class, we would go over the next behavior,
Yeah.
okay? And then the next class, because once I show you how to do it, it's just do it, okay? But yours is gonna be more work, so you might end up taking longer,
In between classes.
potentially, or you might just you might finish your program, you have all the information, but you're gonna keep doing it for a few more months. Because resource guarding and touch sensitivity are both long-term goals, exactly. So like, if you're doing 2 at once, and they're both like, it's a, how do you say, like it takes time.
Yeah.
But you have your life, you have your work life,
Right,
your
right.
family life, all that stuff. You may not have the time every day to work with her. So then it's like maybe one day you work on one, the next day you work on another. One day you have time for both, you do both. You're just kind of doing it as you go along until you hit a point where it's like, yeah, anytime I say drop, she just spits it out, no problem. I go, great, your release command is awesome. Now focus more on the touch sensitivity until you get that to a point where you want it. And then the next thing that takes a long time to teach, if you're wanting to teach it, is recall, which is common called, okay?
Yes, I do.
So that one is also another long-term one, okay? The heel is quick because you walk your dog, or at least most people walk their dog 3 times a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So that's usually the fastest thing that we teach. Recall is typically the longest because you got to go to the park, pop your dog on a long leash, let her run around with your dog, and then practice calling her back, okay? So that takes time.
Yeah.
So.
But I do want to teach you that.
So the way I approach this, I only teach what you're going to use. So we need the heel for sure, because that's what teaches her how the e-collar works.
Okay.
Recall because you want it, and then it's just an important command for a dog to learn.
Yeah.
Resource guarding, or how to release something. Touch sensitivity. Okay, so those are things that I have on my list from what I'm hearing from you.
Yes.
Is that all correct?
Yes.
Is there anything else that you need?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I want to leave room for like if things happen, if things come up during training that we have to adjust for, but I think that's my major goals of like, I would like to be able to walk with her and she's by my side.
She pulls a lot.
She pulls a lot.
Yeah.
Like, go to a farmer's market if I need to, and like, she'll be fine, even if the muzzle's on, you know, like, that's fine, but I wanna be able to, I can't do that with her right now because of my anxiety and also because she pulls me. So like, all of that, that's all I'm here, yeah.
The obedience stuff is easy.
Okay.
Okay, the obedience stuff, the resource guarding stuff is easy, it just takes time.
Yeah.
The testativity and the just kind of building up your confidence and stuff is the more complicated part. Okay, because that's, remember, we can't, if she's a dog that's just indifferent and rather just be left alone, that's just her. We just can't make her like that.
Which I'm cool with. I think it's a mix of that. Like, I think it's a mix of that she is a dog that kind of isn't gonna be.
It's a highway, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's fine.
He is who he is.
But also when she's asking for pets, and I want to feel confident that she's not going to.
Right, now the thing about that is that some dogs, that's more of a bully type behavior. If a dog asks and or demands to be pet and then growls or snaps, that's a bully, right? Because they're saying, hey, do this for me. All right, I've had enough.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the relationship.
Got it.
So then that's why I said on your terms, not her terms.
Yeah.
So instead of either coming to her space or her coming into your space saying, hey, pet me, I wouldn't do that. I'd go, hey, get your ass over here, hit her with the remote. She comes over, hey, I'm here. That's a good girl. Right now, I'm doing your flipping it.
Oh, okay.
You see that? Because now she's worried about the collar. She's like, hey, I'm
See,
here.
this is why, this is the stuff though, that I want to work on.
Right, so that's why you just have to change the approach.
Okay.
So like, knowing that, I go, yep, if she comes telling, because it's not asking me to pet her.
Right.
It's telling me to pet her. So it's like me growing up and I told my mom, hey mom, make me a sandwich.
Right.
Right, like that.
It's a little rude.
Yes, okay, it does not go over well with mom.
Right.
Mom, may I please have a sandwich?
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
She might say, go make it your damn self, or she might say, sure, sweetie, make it for you, right? But the tone, the energy, it's all different. So when she comes over, she pushes you and says, hey, pet me. That's a command.
And that's, she has this rude energy, like.
She does it to me, like
She
she's
did
sitting there,
it.
yeah.
If your bag was here, she'd stick her nose in the bag and like go through it. Like, that's like if you don't pet her and she'll kind of jump, you know, like to get up to you.
Mhm. So all that stuff is things that we would just change,
Cool.
okay? And then, so you're because I have 6, 9, and 12-week programs. You're probably like in that 9 class range.
Okay.
Okay, so 6 classes, 2 would be on heal, 1 would be on recall, 1 on resource guarding, 1 on touch sensitivity with the muzzle, and then 1 potentially on like just like how to interact with her correctly, when not to interact and when to interact, right?
Okay.
That's me bare bones.
6, bare bones. 9.
9 is all that, but we have like kind of a gap of 3 classes just in case like something not going well, because you said like a bit of a buffer, right?
Yes.
Because it happens. Like, let's say you're doing the resource guarding, you're like, hey, Jesse, try doing it, but like,
Jesse, and some of this is gonna be honestly just teaching me that we're okay.
That's all
And
good.
that a lot of it is.
yes.
Like, that's really what part of the buffer,
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna have these questions where like, Jesse, is this, you know, like, I look to you, for you.
I still text him.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this just happened, yeah.
And so, like, I like the 9 already. I like the 9 already.
So, and then we just focus on the core stuff that I know you need. Okay, you can do more if you'd like, but for what you're telling me in your problem with the dog here is 9 is a nice, it gives us plenty of time. We don't feel like we're having to condense everything, right? So if one time it's like, all right, we didn't get everything all today, no problem, we have another class we can spend on the other half, okay?
Yeah. Plus, I ask a lot of questions.
That's fine too, okay?
I do.
So,
You should.
most of the stuff, because I changed how we operate now, because I used to do home to home. I still do home to home, but now the rates are different. So if you come here, or if you meet me at Oz Park, it's 1 rate, and if I have to travel to you, it's a separate rate. Because now everybody travels to me, that if I gotta leave to go to your home and then come back, now it's more time.
Can we do a mix?
Yeah, so what we do now is a lot of people will
I feel
do,
like that might be a good for me, because so much of this shit happens in my house too, that
Sure.
sound like up 2 or 3 might be nice in the house.
Sure.
Right.
So what we do is, let's say you did the 9, right?
Yeah.
You do 9 here at the facility, here or at Oz Park, and you get like here at Oz Park, like if it changes, there's no extra charge. It's at least one of these locations, because I'm gonna be at either one,
Got it.
okay? But then you decide, I like to have 2 classes at home. And there's just like a $50 charge.
For
So when
that.
you're ready for the class, and then Maria will just
Right.
do that, and then I show up to your house.
Okay.
Because the in-home rate is more expensive, because in total,
It-
the entire
travel more,
program
it's more
is in the
time,
house.
yes.
Exactly.
Yes, that makes
Um,
sense.
Questions? And then that's when you choose, you choose. So if like everything's going
You
great,
choose what?
which classes you want to be in the home and stuff.
Cool.
The first ones are always going to be either here
Here
at
at
the home.
Osborne.
Resource guarding stuff, I usually recommend that we do here, or if that wants to be an in-home, that's fine, because we have no distractions here.
We will probably do one here and one at home for resource guarding, to be honest with you. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, yeah.
And then it's really just played by ear.
After.
After we do the first class, I can pretty much jump in any direction. But the heel has to happen first.
Okay, yeah, that's cool.
Because that's what teaches you how to use the collar, teaches the dog what the collar is.
Yeah.
Because people tend to think like slap the collar on the dog and just hit the
Yeah,
remote. It's not, you have to teach her what it is, because then you're more likely to create issues.
Mhm.
As we go along in the program, let's say we're doing resource guarding, she has a bone, and you come back, you're like, man, Jesse, he gave her a bone, I was at 127, she didn't care. And I go, second collar,
Right.
because we need to override.
Yeah, I'm aware.
And then, but that's all we figure out in time. I'd probably put her on a prong as well,
Yes.
just in case, so you can pair a prong and collar.
Well, I've been waiting to buy, because I didn't know which one or like what you were gonna say, so
Yeah, 3 millimeter herm sprainer, which Maria will send you the information.
this is what I was hoping for.
Yeah, 3 millimeter herm sprainer. Because when we have a large dog like this, let's say, you turn the corner, like something just happens, it gives you immediacy.
Yeah.
And then the e-collar is able to control her, more so.
Another trainer, she had a prong collar for a short time, and then the other trainer told us, well, let's take that off, that's part of why.
That's a lie.
I know, that's part of the exhausting part of it, it's like we've seen 3 people, you know what I mean? So it's like, but yeah,
Yeah, you can do prong.
I want a pronger again. The other day I was so angry at her, I walked back in and said, you're going back on.
Yeah, I mean, if you have one already.
I got rid of it.
Oh, I
gotta
gotcha.
find it.
Yeah. But yeah, you can pop that on her right away if you were using it before.
Okay,
And we trainers call it power steering on the dog,
right,
just because how much leverage you have.
right,
And then from there, I just coach you through all the stuff, okay?
yeah,
Now, if we hit a point, like let's say, with the touch sensitivity stuff and everything like that, I can only take it as far as you're willing to go.
yes,
And just know that in that moment, if you're doing touch sensitivity and we're pushing thresholds, like she might get defensive,
Right.
but that's why that muzzle is there. But you have to be willing to work through it and continue to work it if you're not actually gonna get anywhere.
yes.
Okay, and I have footage for like other cases that I've worked on, and I'll like send them to you. Like here,
Yes.
like here's a frame of reference. So like let's say we work with her and we see nothing, but then you go to work with her at home, and all of a sudden she's being a jerk,
I gotta do it,
right? Then I'm like, well, here's the video because you didn't see how we would work through it,
right,
right? So I have stuff that I can send you as well.
be good.
But that's what I would suggest here. Any other questions?
The only other thing, and this is lame, so don't judge me, like when you read, I really just want like a write-up of like I want to know, like, is Koba, like, I want to be able to know off the top of my head, like, yeah, Koba's pretty dog friendly. Like, I don't have to worry about that. You know what I mean? I mean, like, I always have to worry. Like, when you see dogs that are getting like, fostered or adopted, you get these write-ups of, like, they're dog friendly, they're kid friendly, when it's not like 100%. But, like, I think you telling me Koba is not an aggressive dog was, like, good for me. So I want to know, like, yes, Koba's not aggressive, she's also dog friendly, she's also, like, I think for me it's important to have some of that, your opinion on that.
She's capable.
Yes.
Alright, so the dog social stuff, I'd have to see her interaction.
Totally.
Now, is she a dog park dog? I don't know.
No, because I don't go because of ball. Are you asking me or is that hypothetical?
Oh, cause,
Oh, because I get so nervous because of, like, there will be another ball there or,
but that's not making her dog aggressive, that's a resource guarder. Remember, so if you take, let's say you go to the dog park and you remove all the balls,
yes,
would you expect to see aggression?
no.
Right. So that's the thing about resource guarding, is it's context based, right? So if you're like, yeah, she'll get the dog park and there's nothing there for her to guard, she'd be great with the dogs. I go, then yeah, your dog is social. But when there's an object around, she gets defensive. That's a resource guarder.
So she's not social. right?
She could be social, she's just, it's the.
So
object.
the choice
This is what
can't
happened
be
with
there.
Highway, so Highway, when he was little, we took him to the dog park, and he blah, 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 and then all of a sudden he got to a point in his life where everything is his, and he owns it all,
Mhm.
and he would collect all the balls by him, and then nobody could come near him,
Mhm.
and then dogs would get mad at him, and then Sunday, when he had a border collie, would jump in and try to protect him, and it was just.
Yeah, I guess I don't know.
But it's the balls, it's not the dogs.
Yeah,
it's the
yeah,
balls.
because remember, it's a context, because she's only being defensive if there's an object. So if you remove the object, there's nothing to be defensive over.
Mhm.
Yeah,
See what I'm saying? So like, if there's a person with a family member in
So
a
I-
burning building, they're gonna freak out. But if there's no family member in the burning building and it's empty, we don't freak out.
so I guess our question, what I'm thinking is like, well, there's always balls there at the dog park, so it's like hard to know,
Right, so,
right? Like,
I think that should not even be allowed.
right.
To tell you the truth, balls and toys and dogs.
yeah, like, you know, it's just, so that's the thing though. If you go to a dog park and there's balls there, now there is a workaround, okay? Because if I teach her that all balls off the grounds are off limits, she can't possess anything. And you can't do that with e-collar, okay?
And then they get a ball through me,
Correct. So if you never gave her a ball at the dog park,
right?
there should be technically nothing to guard.
Yeah, but what if I throw it, hits the ground, and she goes and gets it, that's fine?
Around other dogs,
No,
or alone,
alone,
that's fine,
okay.
okay?
Yeah, I get that, I get what you're saying, you take
Yeah.
that kind of off the table.
Yes. So like yesterday, I had to socialize a dog with a puppy, and he wasn't aggressive, but he was so crazy for sticks that we put him with the puppy, and he kept going for the sticks. And like, there was like, acted like there was no puppy there.
Yeah.
So I kept correcting him for the sticks, and the owner was like, well, why would you do that? I'm like, well, if you want your dog to learn to be social, you have to remove sticks as an option. And as soon as we did that, he was like, oh, there's a puppy here. And he started interacting with the puppy.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's the same thing. I get other dogs, they're so ball focused. If there's a ball around, everything, they just get tunnel vision.
yeah.
And as soon as you remove the ball, oh, there's people around. You know, so it's the same thing here, except she's guarding.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so my assumption from what you've told me is she's dog social unless there's an object around. And that she's not social, it's just that she sees this competition for the object.
Yeah,
Okay. Now, if it's been a while since you socialized her with dogs, sociability is like a muscle.
okay, so we gotta work that.
So you potentially may have to work that.
That's,
Okay?
I want that, I wanna know Koba, right? I want Koba and I to have a flow of like, yep, girl, I'm not gonna do that to you, and, because you can't handle that, or that's not you, and then this is how we go through life,
Mhm.
right?
Right. Now, getting her to socialize with like a friend's dog is more realistic because it's controlled. But like if it's like, hey, there's 8 random dogs at the park, I wouldn't really worry about that.
I agree.
Okay. So, with the 9 classes, we would have time, or should have time to cover that as well.
Okay,
Okay. And then because she already will tolerate muzzle and everything, like you're already steps ahead. Okay. So what I would suggest in the interim is if you've not done, go ahead and do adding food with what's called non-next plan. Food to the muzzle.
and do you just like put it in the bottom part of this thing?
Yeah, so like if it's a basket style, you just put it and she takes it like that,
Okay, out of my
Okay.
hand.
out of the muzzle. So you're using the muzzle kind of like a bowl.
It's this one,
Sure. So what you can do is take a Ziploc bag,
okay,
push it on the inside and fold over on the outside to wrap
to
it.
make a bowl.
Exactly. And then you could just put the treat in there and she could just stick it. You don't have to worry about it falling through or trying to hold it into little holes.
Yeah,
Okay, so that she can take it and then pull her mouth out and everything. Going back to earlier with the chicken and the touching thing,
yeah.
I think what probably happened was you're holding the, one second, or my client. Okay, I did the floor.
I didn't put them in the right now.
Okay, so someone wrapping up the front door. Thanks. I think what probably happened was she was taking the food and got to a point where she felt like it was kind of like a bowl. And then when you're touching her, it triggered resource guarding.
The bowl,
Because you said you're giving her chicken
Yeah.
and rice. Now, will you?
it triggered her resource guarding.
Yeah, I think what happened was, because was she feeding actively as you were petting?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's what happened. I think your hand kind of became a bowl, right? And then as
You
you're,
know what? Now that I think about it, I think I might have been holding the bowl. at that moment.
See,
That
because,
she might have for that one
Yeah,
actually
she thought you
eating
were-
out of
yeah,
that
that
bowl.
makes sense.
yeah, because when you were saying that, like, dogs are weird.
Yeah.
So if you could have the bowl on the ground and she's eating from it and you touch her, trigger, right? But if you give it from your hand and touch, you most likely won't have a trigger. But if there's plenty of food there where the dog is staying and eating, it becomes
That's what it
likable,
was.
and then as you're touching, we get the trigger. So I think that's what happened with that, so that's still technically resource guarding. The blister thing makes sense because, it was a blister, there's some discomfort and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And
But
then
she
the-
wasn't in discomfort in that moment when she bit me. That was on the couch. I feel like the couch and the bed have something
That's also potential as well, yes.
to do with it.
Guarding the area of the couch and
Yes.
or bed, yeah.
I feel like that's exists.
Okay, so Maria will follow up with you with an email.
Okay, cool.
She's gonna send you the information for the color I recommend, the prong color I recommend.
Yes, just send me the damn link and I'll buy it, Jesse, I promise.
Are you sure you're not related?
Well, that's what her mom said. Her mom's like, she's like more your kid than mine.
That's funny, because right now, like in the beginning, I was like picking up similarities and I was
Yeah.
like, your mom, I'm like, wait a minute, I
Yeah,
don't think I
no,
remember
no,
being in
no.
She's like my daughter, I never.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it's freaky weird. Like,
Yeah.
even from being a young girl, I was always like, I'm gonna move to Chicago when I grow
Yeah,
up.
she grew up out in
Like,
the
the
rock.
road, like,
Oh, gotcha,
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah, out there.
yeah, and my mom was like terrified. She's like, yeah. Okay, let's do it.
How far out are you?
Maria would know, I think right now we're booking into September, but it depends on your
You know,
availability.
it's been my whole damn, we've been, what's one more month right now?
Sure.
Jesse, you know?
Yeah, I mean, my evenings and weekends are fairly full because that's when most people's schedule is 9 to 5. So if you have daytime, like during the week, it's easier to get you in sooner. Otherwise, if you're wanting like a weekend and or evening time, it's gonna be
Harder.
a little bit of a wait. But Maria would help you figure all that stuff
Okay.
out. Okay?
All right.
All right, Marianne, it was a pleasure seeing you again.
Can I ask you one quick question? Do you
What's
think
up?
I should put Pilsen on a prong too? That's my